Beautiful. There's a little group on their way here to try to hear the sermon this morning, but may have it preached before they arrive. We'll just keep trusting. This is the first time that 5 or 6 people have asked for tapes before I ever preach a sermon. Now that means God's working with someone.
Yes, sir.
And I praise Him this morning. So we pray that the Lord will help me get the sermon out, and that Jesus will be glorified, and that God will put this all together by His grace and by His mercy. Before I speak, Brother Guy William, it was a great blessing on this trip. So glad that Jesus had me speak on the way to California, and asked God's servant if he wanted him to go. Because not only was he a blessing in singing, he was a blessing in just being who he is. And that's where his greatest blessing is anyway. I've spoken often of Guy through the years, but I have not misspoken. And if I have seemingly neglected someone else, that has been a needful neglect. Bless it, don't curse it. When I finished speaking at the church of at the place of the upper room, I needed help from God because Joseph had been so wonderful. Peggy was crying. And I said, now, Lord, there's not much use for me to say anything. This man's mastered brevity and profoundness. And I don't see that I should say anything. And most of the time I didn't really try to upstage him, because God was working so wonderfully through our complimenting him rather than our trying to bring something more significant to what he said. For all that he said, it seemed to me, was significant. God was working in our own hearts, but nevertheless, the Lord prompted me to speak further there, and so I spoke. I really can't remember what I said. I remember the buffeting very well. But I spoke something, the place of the upper room, words that were brief. Now, God only knows if they were profound. But words that were anointed. And I went away. Well, the buffeting began immediately and lasted all the way to the church of St. Anne. Because no one told me that it operated in their heart. I found out later from this servant of God that what I said operated in his heart. That meant Jesus was leading, Jesus was speaking through me. We got to the church of St. Anne. Just before he went in, I believe, this servant, Guy Young, came to me and he said, Pastor, what you said in the upper room operated in my heart. I wanted you to know. I said, oh, Guy. I said, oh, Guy. That helps me so much. It helps me to continue to obey God, even in the presence of a master teacher and a master scholar, a master archaeologist. I don't know what all he's mastered, but it sounds like he's mastered many fields. And that God will help me to obey. Guy, I needed your words today. And I was so blessed. I said to him that I thought came to me after I finished speaking in the upper room. If Pastor Steve was here, he's of such a childlike nature, he couldn't help but have said, that's in my heart. Oliver, that operates in my heart. I would have been encouraged on the spot. But Pastor Steve has that special gift that nobody can copy. But Guy was faithful to get to me to the church of St. Anne and in another place where the Lord spoke through me, to help me to be encouraged and strengthened, because usually the most important things are set under the greatest buffeting. The thing that kept me under the anointing a while ago was I had a choir in front of me. I didn't have to look at some cold faces. Maybe they weren't cold, but I didn't dare take the chance. So I stood just back and let the camera catch my eye, because there are people who will look at this. And I spoke by God's grace, an anointing almost constant. If I carry that anointing over in this sermon, it's going to only be by the mercy of God. And I spoke till my mother said she enjoyed the trip. She didn't go on it at all. But she came up to let me know she enjoyed the trip, because he helped me to be pictorial, under an anointing. See, I spoke. No man can speak like that, lest God's Spirit be upon him. But Guy encouraged me And God used him in singing, and He used him in the choir over and over again. But I felt like that perhaps the greatest need was just him. Just Guy William Young. If he never sang a word, never sang a song, just him. And he was there. And God used him by God's grace. He encouraged the saints, encouraged the bus, encouraged the pastor's hearts, encouraged the man of God in charge, encouraged all those around him, because he was at liberty, and the Spirit of God caused him to be a great help in this pilgrimage. I'm grateful. He will sing before I speak the glory of His presence.